Okay, I'm going to indulge myself this evening, if you don't mind. It's a strange thing handing over chair of something that I've been involved in for the last 2 years. I'm very happy to do it because of the new chairs we're proposing are brilliant. But I just felt it worthwhile to go through a little bit of self-indulgence and talk about how we got to where we are. I know I've done it last year, but I just whipped through where we got through, why we got there, and really show how much we as a group have grown over the last 2 years. I think that's the important bit for me, that actually we've grown from nothing to 500 plus members in 2 years. And I think that's a real star for us to put up. I think it's been impressive. I think everyone who has joined has contributed in one way or another. And I really, I think it's brilliant. So what I like to do is just run through, if I can, if this works, is what happened. What happened over the last, since 2018, actually, rather than put it 2019, but just click that. Okay, so just take it back to 2018, and this was November 2018, I think, when the first encounter was had with the council. And 2 young people, both named Brown, one Alice and one Dan, lovely name, Dan Brown, whose father is James, who's a friend of mine and infamous for climbing on an airplane there at London Airport. But Alice and Dan went to the council and said, please declare a climate emergency. This was in the early heydays, if you like, of Extinction Rebellion. And of course, the Wiltshire Council leader then, Jane, help me, Scott, said no, she wouldn't. And the number of us who went, I think it was about 10 or 15, went to school, we all walked out then and mumbling. But I see a man sitting on the screen there, Brian, who worked really hard at a motion on the climate emergency, and we worked together a bit on it, and it went through. A miracle of miracles, it actually went through on the 25th of February, and that was the start of the journey we're on now. And I think that it went through on a whisper, but actually it went through because of a number of things. Brian doing the motion, and Jerry Wickham, who unfortunately passed away, in fact, that year, standing up as a Conservative and saying all the Conservatives have a free vote on this. And I think that also made a difference, just tipped the balance for them to pass this motion, which has led us to where we are today, frankly. And then after that, the council formed a task group. They moved on. We had informal meetings with them, and by October, public meetings were being held. That was run by the task group and others, to find out what people wanted to do about climate and how they wanted to deal with it. So 2019 was a busy year, but actually we were feeling, we as individual citizens and small groups were feeling quite frustrated by it. So by 2020, early 2020, when the next full council meeting came round, we formed an informal group of people from groups in the county and went to that meeting and demanded they actually got on with stuff, not just talked about it. Rallied outside County Hall, asked questions, many questions in the council, and after that we realised actually there were a lot of groups in the county that wanted to have a face, if you like, through to put pressure on. And we agreed actually what we wanted to do is take all the environment groups and form an umbrella to deal with them so that we could pass things through. And that's when Wiltshire Climate Alliance was born. By April 2020, we'd actually got our plans together. We'd worked out what we were going to do. We had a vision, which is the climate and nature-friendly, net zero and ecologically sustainable Wiltshire by 2030, and then some objectives to drive that along. And this was at the beginning of lockdown. So amazingly, because it was lockdown, this took off. And I think that's another strange benefit of COVID has actually meant that our group has grown enormously because of Zoom and the fact we had a website on MailChimp, and we actually worked really, really hard at that. You know, had a lot of things happening by the end of the year, youth group workshops, MP workshops, topic groups running. So it was a really active period in our early growth. On the 23rd of February 21, there was still what we would have said is no visible progress from the council. However, I would say the task group had already done recommendations to cabinet, but the trouble is there was no action plan. They had actually, I think, engaged their, she wasn't working by then, but they engaged their first council officer team leader for climate by then, but she wasn't then engaged. So we had this this brilliant time and out in the rain again, outside County Hall, giving everyone jip and again asking questions in council. So we moved on then to through there. We looked at the local plan. We looked at the local in 2021. We looked at the local plan. We looked at the local elections. We really worked hard on the local elections, and that was really again a concerted effort. I mean, the local plan consultation response we put in, I think, was getting over 100 pages, and then we responded to the climate, green and blue infrastructure strategy, which came out later in the year. So 21 was again a very, very big, busy year, and I think everyone in the group is throwing stuff at this all the time, and but you know, again, it always amazes me how active people are. So we again demonstrated in the year, because we felt that we needed to make a mark against when the climate strategy was first introduced to council, with some more questions and some more demands outside. We want action, and that's what we still want. We want action. We've got a very good plan, but we want action. We then get to just talk about COP. Interesting, COP, a number of our guys went, and I think looking at the blah, blah, blah that was going on in the main hall, the people who went actually were in the whatever it was called, the behind the scenes work, where hundreds of people were working to try and work together to deal with the climate. And the message from them was that we have to work from the bottom up to get real change. And I sort of agree with that statement, although I think we've got to work from top down as well. But that comes back to us. We're the bottom, and we're working upwards through the council and through other things in the county. Then on the 15th of February, we went again, and we were outside this time Civic Hall because the county hall was closed. And again, asked, I think it was 9 or 10 people asked questions in the meeting. The debate went on for an extremely long time in council, because this is when they were signing off on the strategy and on the green and blue infrastructure. And I think it was about 8:30 in the evening by the time it got through, after a lot of debate on it and a lot of encouraging words from the council, to be honest. But words are fine. I think we still are in the same place saying we want action. And I think that is where I'm leaving it now, to move on to try and work more on the action side of it and less on the sort of managing of the group. Because the Climate Emergency UK scorecard, which was issued for the council, scored them incredibly highly. And I think it was a fair score in the way that they managed the scorecard, because the scorecard was about documentation that showed that they had actually taken planning of dealing with the climate emergency properly. And the climate strategy that they've got is very good. The climate strategy they've got is has got a lot of things in it. In fact, one of the questions I asked in council was about the 36 immediate actions that they were going to take and had they a plan for those and how they were going to deal with those immediate actions. And I think when I asked that question, I also asked whether they were going to resource up properly for that, and was told that they would. Yes, we would, I think, was the answer. So I think this is time to watch and time to work out how we follow up on all of those things. Okay, so just a little bit more. This year, we're going to still be working on Zoom. We will have the website running, but there is still a lot more work to be done. And I'm going to enjoy this year in the freedom of being able to do lots of other things other than manage the group. And these are the focuses we talked about already, although I'm sure our new chairs will pick it up and make their own thing. We want to chase the delivery plans. We want to look at the local council plan, and the transport reviews, which I think we have to do this year. They're both coming out this year sometime. I think somebody said August or September. And then Wiltshire Comet Line's business engagement, which is going to be a big thing for us this year, because that to us, the largest part of emissions, other than from the people in the county, are from business. And I know the council are doing a lot, but they are very small in terms of the hit of carbon emissions. So business engagement would be a massive one for us this year. And then other projects like food collection, suggestions for food waste collections, community environmental enhancements, local solar, new council initiative, which they're trying to get in through, I can't think of the name now, it doesn't matter, but they've got a company who are going to help get discounted pricing for solar and batteries. And they're hoping to get a large number of people in the county taking it up. Active travel, massive issue for us, and support and advice on retrofitting of homes. We want to take that as a big issue for us this year through our energy group. And then a pet subject of mine, EV charging points, which I should be working on as well this year. So that's a sort of focus of things. I'm sure, say, the new chairs will talk about this, so I'll leave it for there. I'll just leave you one thought. That's something that I think about not every day, but it's as great. Apathy is a problem. So someone else might save it, I think is the point. But really, we have to get on with it. Gets back to the COP26 messages, and it gets back to all the things we've been doing over the last 2-3 years. So I'm just passing that on. Don't be apathetic. Don't let your neighbour be apathetic. Always be positive. You are an enabler in our county. Please enable. Okay, that's me. I'll pass over to Christian, I think, who will have that, or Eva, who are going to give you a report on finance and secretarial stuff.
Thank you, Bill. If you could stop sharing, then I'll...
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right. Thank you very much, Bill. Lots of really good stuff there. I'm just going to go and share my screen there, and so we can have a quick look at that. Okay, so that's the agenda for tonight, by the way, people. So I'm going to give you a quick Treasurer's report, and Eva will say a few words in a minute. Then we're going to do some constitutional stuff. So, and hopefully we can whip through that, and then we'll have part 2, which is more around kind of updates from various different groups around. So, done that. Okay, Bill's done his. My Treasurer's report, so it'll be really quick. Okay, so our opening balance this year was £779. People fundraiser, which is a bit like a Virgin Money or whatever, but people's fundraisers, we like to use that because it's they don't charge us very much, and they're very ethical. So we've had £789 donated through that, and I'm sure Eva or someone will put the link in the chat because that's where we tend to get most of our money from. We've also had some really generous donations from some of the member groups. I shan't embarrass them by saying them. So people like Bradford on Avon and etc. They have kindly donated funds straight into our account. We've also had a couple of parish councils donate straight to us, which was very good. Our outgoings were the Zoom account, some printings, particularly around the election time, some stuff around social media, and basically our balance should be around 1,263. We haven't actually got a bank account at the moment. Our funds are looked after by Wessex Community Action, and I haven't been able to speak to them to verify that balance in their account. So it could be slightly more, but that's more or less where we are. A few points. So many thanks to those who contributed. We spent funds during elections a lot, and a website and Zoom is going to cost us about 300 at least in the coming months. That's about it, really. Any questions from anybody before we move on to Eva? If I'll just stop sharing that bit quickly. Any questions around finances at all? Did Eva manage to look at that? Eva, very quickly there. So if you do, we do rely on donations. That's the only thing that we run off at the moment. So. And it's very quick. You chuck a £5 in there. It's really good when people do put in a monthly amount as well. You can do that on there, and that makes life really good for us. Any questions? Any hands up? Nope. Moving straight on then. Eva, over to you.
Cool. I'm going to be even shorter than that, but so I've been Secretary of Wiltshire Climate Alliance for the last couple of years, and as it stands, we have 548 individual members on the mailing list, and in Wiltshire Climate Alliance. We have 35 member groups from around Wiltshire, so that includes various environmental groups, Extinction Rebellion groups, and lots of other groups like animal rights groups and things like that as well in there. So our Facebook following is about 716 people, and we have 179 people within the Wiltshire Climate Alliance Facebook group. We have 851 followers on Instagram and 187 Twitter followers. So I had a quick look at the website, and over the last year we've had 839 unique visitors, and we have had a total of 1,503 unique sessions on the website as well. So that's 1,503 people have visited at one point or another. We've had the top performing pages on the website as our Project Valentine that was recent, and also the 15th of February rally. So a lot of visitors on that one as well. And like Christian has just said, we've just upgraded to a professional Zoom account for Wiltshire Climate Alliance. So all the meetings take place on the same platform, which makes it a lot easier for us when we're logging in and stuff like that. But that's all from me, and thank you.
Thank you, Eva.
Can I just come into the final thing there? Because Eva is stepping back too, and I have to say Eva has been an absolute star in our group right from the beginning. She's worked her socks off on all sorts of stuff, and I just can't thank you enough really for doing what you've done. It's been brilliant. I know you're not disappearing altogether, but I know you've got other things to be getting on with, but thank you so much for helping. The other thing I'd like to say is, I forgot to say when I was talking about the 15th of February thing, Brick Average organised the Valentine cards, which I think were incredibly good, particularly going to every councillor and passing the message on that, you know, we will love you really if you get on with some stuff. But I don't think Brick's here tonight, but I say thank you very much to him too, and everyone else in the steering group, to be honest. Everyone's worked bloody hard. Okay, that's me.
Well, in fact, back to you, Bill, because this is still your section.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Your chair. So
yeah, fine. Okay, no problem. So let's get on with the Constitution. three things we want to do. We've discussed this quite a bit in the steering group, is how we manage it through. And we want to formally increase the steering group members to 12. And I think we'll be putting a list up a bit further on to vote on everybody. And then we decided actually the convener name, which is what I've had over the last couple of years, to be changed to chair, because convener is when you're in a meeting or whatever and you talk to people and I'm the convener, they say, what the hell is that? If you say chair, they actually understand what it is. You have to be in the union to understand what convener means. Okay, so we want to change that to chair, small change. And then the big change is we actually want to have the chair as a shared role with two co-chairs. They'll run for, sounds a bit complicated, but basically every chair will run for 6 months, but they'll stagger 3 months at a time. So there'll always be an overlap between chairs, but it gives flexibility for people to be able to come in and out when they're busy or not busy, to actually take the role. It spreads the load. It enables co-chairs to work together. If somebody's away, the other one can pick up, and etc. And actually, frankly, if you've got two people trying to work out how to steer the group, actually it works much better. So we're proposing that we have co-chairs, and we'll be trying to elect, if you agree to that, we'll be trying to elect them at the next stage of this constitutional session.
I think Brian's got his hand up.
Yes, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you all, because it wouldn't, if it hadn't been for you guys and Extinction Rebellion, this would not have kicked off, and it has done brilliantly. But on the issue of the staggered chair, great idea. Can I suggest that you actually stipulate that it has to be a man and a woman, so that you've got equal representation? Because I think that's really important. And I think that will give a good balance to it. So
Brian, yeah, can I, is that, yeah?
I'm just throwing that in as an idea.
No, I think I would say that's a fantastic idea if we had more women in the steering group, and that's an ask from me before I leave, that actually it would be really helpful if more women stepped forward to help within the steering group. I think the numbers are now down to two, sorry, yeah. Karis and Tess. So we've got 2 out of 10 or 11 now, and it would be great if we had more. You know, we put a note out with our members meeting notification to say, please put your name forward if you feel you would like to be part of the steering group. And unfortunately, nobody's come through other than a couple of people who I think we'll be talking about in a minute. But I agree with you entirely. We should be trying to get more women to do that, and it would be great to have that balance. And I know Karis and Tessa will be stepping up into that role at some point, so it's not that we're forgetting them, but it's going to be quite tricky to get that balance. And the point I was making is that sometimes people are working hard in some area and cannot step into the role at the point, whereas if maybe 6 months later they'll be able to. So that's one of the other flexes we were trying to give, because a lot of the people in the group are still working and need that time. So it's quite a complex thing on a voluntary organisation, but I absolutely agree with your point.
We've got Andrew's got his hand up.
Andrew.
Yeah, can't or won't. I mean, it's like they're not, the chairs and co-chairs aren't elected. It's who pulls the short straw, really. And I'm refusing to do a stint at the moment for all kinds of reasons. But thanks, Brian.
If you're okay, I think that's it for hands up. Bill, I'm going to take us through to the next bit, where we actually go through the votes. You'll see on your screens in a minute that vote. So that vote one, let me just hang on, relaunch poll. It says relaunch. So the quick question is hopefully this has come up. So do you agree or are you for that motion or against that motion? In other words, to increase the number of steering group members to 12. If you could vote now. We've got 29 people present and 80 6% of people have, don't forget to press the submit button, I think, for there. Look at that. There we go, 100%, end poll, and share results. That's 100% an agreement with that. So that's carried forward, if that's okay. Next vote, if you can see that on the screen, is, am I supposed to be doing this bit, Bill? Or
Yeah, you carry on, Chris. That's
I'm
fine.
running the machine. So to change the name from convener, a lot of people don't really know what that means, to be changed to the name chair. Okay, so I'm just going to relaunch that poll. So that there we go. So if you're for that, so in other words, that we call them chair. That's it. Looks like this. Looks like we're going to whip through this at this rate. Okay, lovely. So end poll. That's 100% of people. Share the results. That's 100% in favour with that poll. Thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay, so number 3, so that we share. So there's 2 co-chairs running at any one time for a 6-monthly basis. So if I just relaunch that poll, hopefully we'll see that coming through. So if you want to vote on that. I must say this is much easier than doing it on person sometimes, because they actually run through the whole motions really nice and quickly. Oh, 1 against, fair enough. Okay, we've got 100% vote for that. So end poll, I'm going to share that. So you can see we've got 28 votes for, 1 against. So I'm going to stop sharing that one. Okay, and move over to the next bit, which is the election of the steering group members. I'll explain this bit if you're okay. Do you want me to do this bit, Bill? Should I just?
Yeah, you carry on, Chris. Yeah, no problem.
So we sent out an email a little while ago as to who would like to be steering group members, and as it happened, 12 people came forward, which just happens to be the same amount of people in that are the spaces that we have. So instead of going through each one individually, we would have to do that if it was a competitive thing, but because it's not, those are the names of the people to be part of the steering group. So Bill will stay, Adam, Caris, Brig, me, Graham, Tess, Andrew, Nick, Julian, Keith, and Tony. Keith and Tony are relatively new. The other members have been running as part of the steering group for a while. So if you've got any questions before I move on, I'll just launch that poll to see if people are in agreement with that. Do you want to add anything else, Bill, or anybody else? No, no questions.
No, I don't think so, Chris. I think that's fine. I just trying to think. There was something I was going to say, but don't worry, I'll think of it later. Okay,
lovely. So I've relaunched the poll there. So if you'd like to vote whether you're in favour of that motion or voting us all back in again. Lovely. Lovely. Okay, end poll. Everybody's voted 100%. Thank you very much, everybody. We're very pleased to be your members, most honoured.
Before I get ousted by the election of the chairs, one point. Please, if anybody who is in this meeting feels they would like to be considered to be working in the steering group, please put your name into the chat. If you don't want to put it in the chat, send it either to me, Bill, WiltshireClimateAlliance.org.uk, or to Adam, or to Graham. So please let us know if you would like to join. And we'll work out how we're going to do that, because we've talked about rotating seats and all sorts of stuff, substitutes, so that gives more flexibility to the team. Yeah. Thank you. Okay.
And in a minute, we'll be seeing that there's some vacancies for certain positions on the steering group. So that goes particularly the case for people, who might want to take up some of those posts. Will be kind of come and join us on the steering group as a guest or whatever. Okay, anyway, I'll stop sharing that bit. So the next one is this. So who's going to be co-chair between, well, it's sort of if I got this right, so Adam more or less has kind of started it in a way, and then because sharing that with Bill for a while, and then Graham will come on board. Well, I'm not quite sure exactly when, but sort of June-ish time. Is that right, or is that straight away? I might need a bit.
That's straight away.
Straight away. Okay, so Adam and Graham to take over as chair. Anybody want any questions before we move to the to a poll on that? Oh, Eva, you've got a question.
Margaret, did you say you joined the steering group in the chat? Is that what?
No.
Oh. Oh, Margaret Green. Sorry. Let's do Margaret.
Right.
Can we get Margaret?
Do you want me to stop sharing for a minute?
No, carry on. Yeah, no, Margaret Green did send a note. We'll pick that up in a second.
We'll pick it up as we go along. Okay.
Carry on. Sorry.
So I'm just going to relaunch the poll for that particular one. So that's for Adam Moulton and Graham Martin to be co-chairs for a while. So
hang on. Brian, you've got a question relevant to this?
Well, it was just, I was wondering if both would like to just say a few words, just so that we hear them talk, that's all.
Sounds like a good idea to me.
Hey, shall I kick off then?
Yep. Let me just end this poll and we'll start again. So I'm just going to end this poll now. Okay. Those results won't count because there was only 7 votes counted, and we'll let people have a quick word. Let's just stop sharing for a minute. Okay. So you can see who's who. So Adam, over to you.
Hi, everybody. I think you all know me. I've been quite active for a year or so. So I've been, for the last 6 months, I guess, sort of working closely with Bill, effectively as co-chair, with supporting Bill as we sort of started to think about moving towards this model, which really came out of our strategy away day back in September last year. And so I've been involved in things like writing the response to the 2nd anniversary of the vote and the response to the strategy, and chairing the leaders debate that we had and so on. And I've been leading the energy topic group as well, although probably less effectively than I would like to have done compared to some of the things I've been doing. But and so, you know, I'm very, very willing to take this forward for the next 6 months or so as one of the co-chairs. And I'm very committed to this, as well as very active in my own local group, Corsham Climate Action in the north of the county. So, you know, but I'll wait to hear the outcome of the vote.
Thank you, Adam. Graham?
Okay, tip us off mute. Hi, I've been on the steering group since about this time last year. I'm also chair of Sustainable Devices, and I'm also doing some study into sustainability and behaviour change. So I'm sort of really interested in probably what Bill was fretting about, why people don't care and how do we mobilise and motivate people. And so a particular bent of mine is looking at how do we build up a working partnership with Wiltshire. And to that end, I did some work last year, which I haven't really put as much effort as I wanted to into looking at how we use the area boards. But interestingly, this afternoon, Tamara Ray, who's the portfolio holder for climate, has asked me to go and speak to all the area board councillors next week, because they are trying to get all the reps who are on area boards, who are councillors, and hold a sort of environment interest together to talk about how do we take that forward. So I'm hoping that I can bring that to the table as we go forward. So my bent particularly is finding ways of working in partnership with people.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, so I'm going to relaunch that poll. So for Graham and Adam to be chair for that period. So here we go, it's launched again. Fabulous. Look at that, we're here we go. One more vote. Oh,
I didn't feel I could vote for myself, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Fair enough. It didn't stop. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I voted for myself.
So so show results. There we go. 28 votes, 100% in favour of that. So congratulations, both of you. Adam, do you just want me just to finish this a little bit off, and I'll hand over to you? Is that all right? Okay. So if I go back to this, oh, hang on. If I go back to screen sharing in just a sec. Here we go. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
so
just black though, please.
oh, look at that. We know what coffee Graham likes now.
Not very.
That's great. So next one is for the second bit of the year. Then that's Graham, who kind of, that's that overlap, if I can put it that way. And then I take over from the Adam bit of that, is what it would be. I think most people know me, but I tend to drop out for a while during the summer months, which is why you won't see me until about September time, because I get really busy at work. Those who don't know me, I was kind of involved in the setting up of the website and early days of WCA and so on. I think I'll just put it to a vote for that. Kind of, so I'm just going to put it straight to stop sharing that, and it's going to relaunch it. The relaunch the poll. Here we go. Off we go. Is that there we go, it's going. Yeah. Okay. Maybe that. Lovely. Isn't that nice, Graham? Cute. So thank you very much, everybody. I'll just end that now. You can share the results, and there we go. So thank you very much, everybody. Most honoured. And we'll stop sharing that, and we're just going to go through to the next item, things to be voted for. So if I just share screen again, go back to that. Okay, so we've done that bit. Okay, 7.1 is a treasurer. Is Tess with us this evening? I'm not sure if she is. She's not here. So
I don't think
so just to give people kind of an update as to where we were. So I was treasurer to start off with. As you saw, I gave the treasurer's report. Tess is much better at that kind of thing. So, but eventually, actually, Adam took it over for a little while. But because he was like to be chair, couldn't be chair and treasurer. So Tess volunteered to take on that bit. So I'll just quickly lead to that. Where's it gone? Hang on. Where's my? I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. Should I go back to the polling bit? Okay, so I'm going to relaunch the poll for that. Relaunch poll, relaunch. Okay, so this is for voting Tess in as treasurer. Lovely, I can't vote. There we go. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so I'll share the results. That's 100%. And for Tess to be voted in. Okay, so let me go back on to the, there's just a couple of more things to be done. In fact, I might, bear with me a second. Okay, so that was Tess. And can people see that? Then secretary. Now we have a vacancy. Does someone want to explain this? Adam, do you want to talk to this thing you're now chair?
Yeah, sure. Obviously, Eva's done a fantastic job as secretary up to now, but for very good reasons isn't able to spend as much time with us. So I think that's something we're going to have to just decide on in the steering group, because I think it needs to be a steering group member. At the moment, no one's come forward, but we have got a steering group meeting tomorrow night with all the new members there. So I would suggest we just have to decide it amongst ourselves, because we haven't actually got a nominee for that at the moment. Unless one of the steering group members here wants to put their name forward right now, which I wouldn't suggest they put anyone on any pressure to do so.
Adam, can we say that because it's quite a specific role, and I think if someone hasn't been part of the steering group member, they could easily be co-opted on, I think, because it's quite a specific role, and people on the existing steering group are struggling to find time to do it. So if anybody here is willing to kind of join us straight on, in other words, as a co-opted thing, that might well work as well. So just for thought, is that all right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, I would include that as an option. I just didn't want to put pressure under anyone right now to say there's a vacancy, put your hand up now, because it might be a bit of thought.
Okay.
But certainly, absolutely, that would be one good approach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jez wants to say something, Chris.
Yep, Jez.
Could you put a little brief explanation of what the role is of secretary? I know it's probably self-evident, but you know, how many times a year? What is it? Minutes of meetings or anything else involved with that? Or
maybe if we hand over to Eva. Sorry.
Well, if she could just maybe write something and put it on the website, and then if one's interested in the role, they can look it up and see. You know.
I think the answer is it can be as much or as little as you're hoping, as you would like to help out with. So the kind of like basis of it is taking minutes in meetings and answering steering group meetings. The members meetings we film, so you won't need to take notes unless there are particular action points that you take in the members meetings. Taking notes in steering group meetings, answering emails and any questions that might come through from new members and things like that. There is also other tasks but that could be taken on, but again, they could be shared out. But I think they're the kind of main bits for a secretary, for the secretary role.
I'd also like to mention we're also very keen to beef up our communication side of things, so external communications, media, social media and so on. So I mean, it's quite possible that we could combine those sorts of roles together as well. So it's not like, you know, this is set in stone, we've always done this way for 100 years, it will always be this way. Not at all. It's very much, we'll shape it around whoever wants to do this sort of thing. And it could be someone who's co-opted on, it could be an existing steering group member, whatever. You know, we're flexible. It depends on who's available and who's willing to do the work. So as Eva said, it could be as much or as little as people want to do. So, but do, you know, have a thought, you know, get back to us if people are interested, and it'd be great to get that confirmed before too long, because it is a key role.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go through the couple of other ones then. So on 9 is that communications post. We have spoken with Rachel, who is online, but a very new member, and so on. So if people would be interested in joining, then yes, or don't work around the communications bit, then yeah, please put your names in the or contact us, or say so now, either for. What we found in the past is that it's really important, and maybe we haven't always done this, is that whoever's leading on communications attends those steering group meetings, so they get a complete idea as to where everything's going and so on. Adam, is there anything you want to add to that at all?
No, that's what I was talking about, that role actually, and that's when we.
Okay, and there's one last vacant post, which is this one here, which is our youth coordinator. And again, we want to have as many young people as possible. Poppy was doing it before with the help of Caris and Tess and so on, and it is a sterling job in getting all sorts of stuff going. We are likely to rerun the young persons conference with councillors, which we did really well last year, and we saw a significant increase in young people becoming members. So on our books, we've got 50 people who are under 25, but invariably they don't. Some do, but the vast majority don't come to these meetings. So that will be a vacancy. And again, same things applied to what we've just said about those other 2 posts, in that would be invited to come along to the steering group and so on. Caris, do you want to add anything to that? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but you know. you're really busy, and that's why. Come on, say something.
Yeah. No, it's a great spot to have. It's a lot of work to really motivate young people to come regularly, but they do, they will come for these kind of one-off events, and their voices are really listened to by council members. So it's a very good position. I am also, I'm getting old. I'm 24 now, and our youth group is up to 25. So I'm kind of nearing the end of nearing my retirement in the youth group. So it would be great if you have any grandchildren, children, nieces, nephews who you think would be interested. It'd be really good. Also good work experience as well for universities and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've done a fantastic job so far, Caris and so on. So I think I think that's it. So I'm going to go back to sharing screen, but I'm going to hand over now to our new chair, who's going to say a few words, I think. So Adam, over to you.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you everyone for your votes. So I'd just like to say a few thank yous to Eva, particularly. I think you're slightly underestimating what you actually do for us or have done for us in terms of your role. I think it's been a huge impact, and you've contributed a huge amount to us. And you'll be very sadly missed on the steering group, but I quite understand you're moving on your career and everything like that, and you've got great things ahead of you. And you're very delighted that you'll still be involved as a member. It'll be a hard act to follow, but you've really, really helped us an awful lot, I think. I'd also just want to say the same about Poppy, who's not here, but she also was involved in the steering group, but has also, again, as a young person, moved on to in her career, and so she hasn't been able to carry on either, which is just a natural progression, I think, in terms of people's lives. I'd like to obviously say huge thank you to Bill for his leadership of WCA over the last 2 years or so. The slides that he put up were very much about his achievement as much as everybody else's in terms of founding the organisation and taking it to where it is today. And I think that he's made an incredible contribution. So I'd like to particularly thank Bill for that, and obviously delighted that he's carrying on as a member of the steering group and will continue to give us the benefit of his wisdom and commitment to WCA. So thank you very much, Bill, for that. I'd like to welcome Keith Freegard and Tony Caravan to the steering group. Keith has recently joined us, but has been very active around engagement with business, which is something that we've wanted to do for really as long as we've been around, but haven't really got that off the ground particularly. But Keith, as he'll be talking in a moment, has got some very good experience in that space and really grabbed that and said, I'll run with this. So we're delighted to have Keith on board. And similarly with Tony, who's, again, sort of relatively recently joined us, but has a great experience in the sort of built environment, and has been working particularly in the energy group around the green homes initiatives that we're talking about. And again, he'll touch on that very shortly when we talk about topic groups updates. But very pleased to have both of you on the steering group. To the point that Brian was making, and it's definitely something that we've been agonizing about, I think, in the steering group for some time, is this point about diversity and inclusiveness. And it's not just women, it's all aspects of diversity. It is something that we take enormously seriously, and I particularly do personally. It's something that's been a real bugbear of it's in no sense of criticism of anyone at all in terms of people on the call tonight or anyone else. It's just an observation of mine that environmental organisations tend to be older people and not very ethnically diverse. And one of the things and I don't know why that is, it's just a fact of life. And one of the things that really I thought was brilliant about WCA was the youth group, is the youth group. And part of what has given it the dynamism that it has had over the past 2 years has been that very active youth group of people, Ava and Poppy and Tess and so on, and Caris, and that has been, I refer to it as our secret weapon, actually, because they are the people who get into engagement with MPs and councillors in a way that people like me just don't cut through in the same way at all. And we saw that with the youth conference that we had two years ago now, was it? Getting on for 2 years ago. Now, obviously, but the same thing that, you know, people who were in their early 20s going through education, first jobs, you know, inevitably they'll be moving on and having lots of challenges, new challenges, new opportunities in their lives. So it's inevitable that we're losing some of those people. It would be great if we could renew that. And so, as I think Caris was saying, you know, if any of you know younger people, particularly maybe family members or friends or people you know locally who might want to get involved, it is a great platform for people, you know, get some exposure, get some great learning. I think it would look good on a CV, particularly if you were thinking about a career or they were thinking about a career in an environmental area or something. So please, you know, please, if you think of people like that, let us know. Because where we are now is the steering group has become less diverse than it was because of losing those younger members. And so we're moving it essentially in the wrong direction. It's nobody's fault, it's just the reality of life. But it is something we're very concerned about and we do want to address. And so thank you to Margaret for your suggestion. We'll definitely, we won't do it now because it's sort of a bit out of process, but we'll certainly come back to you on that. Also, thank you for Paul, your message suggesting you might get involved in the comms side of things. We'll get back to you on that as well. So those were just the main things I was going to say about the steering group. We're going to go into topic groups in a moment. The other thing I want to just touch on was, which we'll come on to in member groups, is that there are sort of two aspects to our mission, if you like, as WCA. One is the engagement with the council and indeed with business, as Keith will be talking about. And that's been very a key part of our work, responding to consultations, lobbying, councillors, getting engaged at council meetings and so on. But the other really key part is the active engagement and networking across member groups. And we'll have some updates from member groups in a moment. And I think that's something although it's working well, I'd like to really encourage that while I'm sort of involved, that we build more networking between our member groups. And I really encourage people to network even now, just via when we get into that member group update session, via the chat and so on, because the more we can share ideas between member groups, the better. I think it just strengthens the groups. I've certainly learned a lot in my group from other groups that I've met through the WCA network. Okay, I think that's all I was going to say for now. Perhaps any questions anyone's got for me, or any hints for things you want me to focus on now? I'm sort of taking over as the new chair, or just any questions? Brian.
Sorry, just a quickie. There's a couple of ideas that have gone up in the chat that you might like to take a look at there. I've just suggested how about getting in touch with schools and colleges in Wiltshire and explaining a bit more about WCA and how getting involved would be useful for, you know, young people's careers, as has been mentioned. Mm-hmm. And there's also, Sarah has mentioned about being team leader, youth education and wellbeing team at Wiltshire Wildlife Trust. Yeah. So obviously there's lots of expertise out there, so I'd suggest tap it.
No, thank you. Those are good suggestions. I mean, particularly Sarah, that's a very specific point. We'd very much like to take you up on that. But also Brian, yeah, I think the schools and particularly colleges, I think people sort of moving through further education is a good area. Yeah. Okay.
Just a quick thought.
Yeah.
We're just a tiny bit running over time.
Yeah.
Would you like to have the break now or in 20 minutes time?
I was actually going to suggest that given where we are, it's a natural point for a quick 5-minute break, and then we could do topic group and member groups if everyone's happy with that. It's a natural transition point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds good.
Quick 5 minutes.
Lovely.
Thanks, everyone.
There we go.
Okay. Great. So these are topics, the topic groups that we're going to have updates on, although Brig's not here, so I'm not sure who's going to cover waste. I know they've been very active. But do we have a speaker on the waste group?
I haven't. I've not been able to get hold of Brig, so I'm not sure. Anybody here from waste group? Can't see. We may have to wait.
I can give a very quick update. And the other one we haven't got at the moment is sustainable development, which is Nick, but that has been very active, particularly around the planning, and I'm sure we'll get so again when we get into the local plan consultation particularly. But let's go for those. So Bill, you okay? Go back to you for.
Yeah, thanks. I'll pick up land use. Claire, I hope will pick up our immediate meeting plans for the next couple of months. But generally, the land use group has had a good year last year. A lot of meetings, a lot of discussions about an enormous number of things, and had a lot of visiting speakers. I won't name them all now because my brain isn't there. But I think that the key for me out of the land use group last year was that it became really focused on how we do local environmental development, whether it be around farming or whether it be around the local community and tree planting or whatever. And the green and blue infrastructure strategy, which the council produced, was a lever for that. And we had a number of conversations, I have to say, led by Sue, who's not here tonight, with them about how we could engage with them, the council, to support all of the things that local communities wanted to do. And the environmental toolkit they've developed, the council have developed, they suggest that we use to look at our local communities, and that's what the land use group is now trying to implement. I know, again, Sue is doing something around Cairn at the moment with it. It's quite complex, and we're thinking to engage with them to find out how we can simplify it. The point that the council made to us was that there are grants available for local communities to do environmental enhancements of various types, but they need those thoughts put into some sort of template in order for them to gain those grants. So if a local community has some ideas on how they want to enhance their local environment, then they can write a paper, write a development of it, take it to the council. They will help shape that into something that could be used, as they say, and ready to take into grant funding when it arrives. And I think that's what we're going to be encouraging people to do this year, and use the land use group as a sort of talking shop about how things are progressing. It's one of the things I'm going to be trying to do in my local community, is to use it and try to develop a local environmental group here. So use the land, I'm speaking to members now, but use the land use group as an area to go into to see how things can be done in the local communities. And you can learn from others as we're developing things, and that's what we'll offer. But we're also going to try and do a couple of other things. We are determined to have a speaker every month, so that it puts some interest in and variety into our monthly meetings. But we're also going to be doing site visits, and the first one we're planning, which is for the 12th of May. And numbers probably will be limited, but we'll be putting some more details out on MailChimp in the next few weeks is at the Eggsbury House Farm, where a guy called Richard Clandet has invited us to come along and have a look at what he's doing. So we'll give you more information on that when we can, and certainly put it up before the next meeting in March. Our meetings are always the third Monday of the month, and they'll be up on the website as well. Okay, Claire, could you just fill in on the details of our speaker for March and possibly for April? I don't know.
Yep. Bear with me 1 minute. 1 second. Yeah. So in March, we've got Peter Thompson, who's going to talk to us about farming clusters. He was originally an agronomist, and he spent 10 years advising farmers on growing crops. He then decided to add his agricultural knowledge to his real love of conservation. So spent 30 years advising farmers how to farm alongside the natural world. So he's an interesting person to hear from because he ran the pilot scheme for farmer clusters. And we've got a number of farmer clusters in Wiltshire, which we've been finding out about. And we've got very lively in our discussions about farming and food and the carbon footprint of food. So we've got him coming up in March. In April, we've got somebody that Sue has arranged, and I don't know so much about this person, but it's about, forgive me if I get this wrong, Shumai natural agriculture practices in Japan. So a Japanese outlook on agriculture. So that's for April. We've got this meeting out in May, and then in June, relevant to the discussion we've been having about methane and land food production in Wiltshire. We've got Anya Doherty of Food Steps, and that's a very interesting area because it's about carbon labelling for food. They're trying to produce a sort of traffic light system for food, taking into account lots of different aspects to give a simple traffic light for food labelling. So that's what we've got coming up. And then we've got our general issues of mapping and land use and the developments in farming, which are going along apace with the public money for public good. So that's the sort of areas we're talking about and discussing and working with.
Thank you, Claire. That's brilliant. Just keep your eye on the MailChimp messages. We don't limit our invites to the land use group. We always invite all members, so you will get a message as a member as when these are taking place. And if you want to look on the website, there's usually some information there on it. Okay, that's me, Adam.
Thank you, Bill. Sounds great. Andrew, would you like to give us a quick update on transport, please?
Yes, okay, and before I do, I just want to point out that we could do with more groups. We haven't got a food or shopping group. We could do with an education group, we could do with an arts group, and some of these are just ready to start, but just need someone who wants to grab hold and start those up. So transport, a big topic as we think, and over the past year or two, we've got to grips with how Wiltshire Council runs transport. We've clarified that they are very interested in big road building schemes. Although Bridget Wayman has been replaced by Salisbury area's Mark McClelland, he has staked his sort of a political reputation on delivering a bypass for Salisbury. We don't cover EVs, electric cars. We ask Energy Group to cover that, partly because the big issue is charging infrastructure, and partly because we've got too much on. Some of us are crazy about cycling and e-bikes. But we've split it into topics. So active travel covers walking and cycling, and we're going to be keeping in-house, as it were, the lots of local work that's people who attend are doing with the council, with town councils and the Wiltshire Council on walking, cycling infrastructure plans, active travel generally. By the way, about 3/4 of people who come to the meetings are involved locally in their own communities on this kind of thing or other aspects of transport. Then there is the problem of roads, and we're deciding to work more closely with the Corridor Alliance. That's a very, very experienced anti-road campaign group. It goes with the idea of road traffic reduction, which is something that Wiltshire Council has never really got, except when there was a small amount of government money to pretend you had a road traffic reduction plan. And then there are the public transport topics, railway development, which is very much an enthusiast's area and not easy to get Wiltshire Council or the government to do any funding whatsoever for any new rail infrastructure. There is a little breakthrough, thanks to Bill and I staying all day at the cabinet at the full council meeting. A councillor approached me, and now members of the council in the Porton area are very keen to try and get a Porton railway station onto the tracks. And that's something that was in a rail strategy produced by the local economic partnership, but gathering dust on the shelf. And then there's the depressing topic of bus service improvement plans, bus infrastructure. And there we have a situation where Wiltshire eagerly put in a bid for government money, only to find that the government granted to all authorities about 1/3 of the money they had promised. So it's ups and downs. I think one of the ways, a couple of the ways we want to work are to educate councillors, direct all 98 of them by sending the material and meeting and talking to them. B, to work in area boards and take a kind of roadshow round saying, do you realise there could be a railway station near you? Do you realise there could be a walking cycling route near you? Do you realise how bad the traffic pollution is for your electors and so on? That's all I want to say for now. Questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. And of course, we've got at some point, probably later this year, the local transport plan consultation coming up, which is going to be a really key one to give input to. So yeah. I'll talk briefly about energy. So the energy group, we rather like Bill was saying, we've had a number of sort of interesting talks. We've looked at things like renewable energy generation, EV car clubs, heat pump technologies, EV charging and things like that. But one of the constant themes throughout it all has been a sort of interest in sharing information about retrofitting existing homes, because as a huge issue, not just for us as individuals, although lots of people are very interested in that for their own homes, but also an area that really the council are doing very little, or the nation is doing very little about, and it's a huge area of emissions. So we've decided in the last few meetings to focus in more and more on that topic of retrofit and see what we can do to expand knowledge across the county of how to go about it. So not trying to be a sort of substitute for the sort of very good information that is out there at sort of national level from various sources, but more of a sort of point where people can sort of turn to someone, not for professional advice, but just for a bit of input and experience sharing. And you may have heard of these green homes types of initiatives that have been done. I think there was actually one in Salisbury several years ago. There have been some done in other counties. There was one done in Bath, again, several years ago. So Tony's just been doing some research around that. And so I'm going to hand over to Tony now briefly just to give a quick update on what he's found out about that. If that's okay, Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So yeah, hello everyone. yes, the good news is there is some activity going on out there. I suppose the not so good news, it doesn't seem to be so much in Wiltshire at the moment, but hopefully it'll gather some steam. So let me just share what I've been finding out so far. There is, as Adam suggested, there's the Centre for Sustainable Energy in Bristol does have a very good structure and website for green open homes. But it seems like there was a spate of activity back about 6 or 7 years ago, and that seems to have dropped off a bit. But if you go on their website, it gives a lot of information about how to set this up and how to structure it. And to be honest, it's a little bit intimidating when it starts going into insurance and doing health and safety inspections of people's homes and making sure that, but anyway, that's further down the road for people. But just to say, what I've done is get in contact with a number of organisations and authorities in Wiltshire and around. So I'll just give you a wrap up of where we're at with those. So Avon are planning to run an event this year. This is the Avon district, so presuming that's Bath and Bristol. They are going to let us know when that is, but there's no particular date yet. And by the way, I would say that what I've offered on our behalf is that we're very happy to host on our website any information or publicity about their events and vice versa. So I think it's a sharing thing, because there is a lot of activity going on out there, and obviously the more we can draw attention to it and share it, the better. So Low Carbon Oxford North, they may be running an event in June. And again, awaiting a response on actually dates around that. Bradford on Avon, that's one of ours, which is great. We've had one positive offer on running an event, and I suspect I don't know anything more about Bradford, but I suspect there's a few people within the group who would be happy to host that. So if anyone online knows about those, please do get in touch. Dorset seem to be the most active group, actually. They've got an amazing website. They've run regular events. They actually have online information sheets about a number of properties, so you can actually go and see what people have actually done. But they are actually planning an open day event, probably 2 weekends in early October. And they reckon they've got about 100 homes they're aiming for to be open across the whole of Dorset. Obviously, some of that's more distant for us, but some will be on the border, particularly Shaftesbury area, that sort of thing. So for the south of the county, you can cross the border and perhaps go and see some of these. But they've got a very well organised group around just specifically arranging this to open doors. Just for anyone interested who might be going through the same process, weaning off oil onto a ground source heat pump, Jennifer Morissetti, who I think is near Shaftesbury, he's actually got her own website, and she's running progress on her conversion job on her place. So anyone who wants to see the ins and outs of that would be useful. Southwest Energy Hub, I'm awaiting their response on ones that are within their area, and they cover sort of the Bristol, Gloucester, North Somerset region. I went a bit further afield to Winchester. They've actually got a Green Homes Fair on the 25th of June in Winchester itself. They don't seem to want to have too many people going onto properties that are going to be open on their open days, but they are going to be producing data sheets and videos, which will be on their website. So again, when that's up and running, we can publicize that. There is an organization called Super Homes, which is, I think, as far as I can make out, is national. And it's a membership organization of residents and organizations around retrofit. And so people post the details. Unfortunately, there's very little in Wiltshire, and it's a bit sparse really in the southern counties, to be honest. But again, it's something that could be looked at if people just want ideas. So there's a whole list of others I'm waiting to hear back on from there, including Somerset Climate Action Network. So we've got other, I don't know, would you call them sister organisations in other counties, who are probably doing very similar things to ourselves. So, you know, there's a potential there for connecting and learning and sharing. But just to say also, to wrap up, there is a huge amount of information out there for people, quite apart from getting anecdotal comments. I think some people are reluctant to give too much information away because it might seem to be recommending, and you know, there's always an issue around that if things don't work out properly. But I have put together a list of organisations who do offer information, and obviously there are some that are government agencies or quangos or whatever who do give free advice to people, individual householders. So there's no shortage of it. I suppose it's just whether you feel it's appropriate for you. So thanks.
Thank you, Christian. You got.
Yeah, Tony, thank you very much for that. I'm just going to share screen for people on our website. There's probably a section that people may not be fully aware of because we haven't formally launched yet, but it's very much linked with that kind of giving advice around retrofitting. So if I share our home screen, so if you go to the home screen on the website, and if you get to the bit there, home and sharing experience, kind of retrofitting, it's slightly hidden at the moment because it's not properly launched yet. But if you click on that, then you'll find a list of people who have volunteered to be contacted to give kind of friendly advice of what it was like for them. So they're not selling you anything or whatever. And this is very similar to kind of the green doors or whatever. And some of these. So if you find yourself in this position, so if you've done some retrofitting or whatever, and are happy to take a phone call from someone who's starting their retrofitting journey, then let us know and we'll add you to this list here. And you don't have to put your phone, your email. I can make it forward to your personal email, but they don't disclose it, etc. Anyway, that's that bit there.
Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, I was going to mention that. So Tony's done some great research there, and clearly this is something which is quite big in other areas, and it's definitely something we'd like to do something much more on a much bigger scale than in Wiltshire, possibly in conjunction with Wiltshire Council. I did mention it briefly to Ariane Crampton at the last council meeting, and she didn't make any commitment to it, but I think it is something, if we can work up a proposal, we could take it to them and see if they could support it in some way. It's definitely within their strategy. It's a question of how to engage with that. So I think that's an important area for us. And next energy group meeting topic group meeting is on the 15th of March. So if you're interested in that topic, do come along. You can register on the WCA website. Waste and recycling is the next one. So we haven't got Brig here. I just want to mention it's a relatively new topic group, but it's got off to a really good start. And there's some great stuff going on there, research around food waste recycling, and sort of lobbying Wiltshire to introduce that, and also looking at what local groups and communities can do in terms of adding recycling facilities that aren't covered by Wiltshire Council. So for instance, in Corsham, we have a recycling hub that takes all stuff that like flexible plastics and stuff and so on. And we've shared that with that group. So that's a good group. So if you're keen on waste, zero waste and recycling, go along and get involved in that one. And then final one to mention tonight, just picking up on Andrew's point, I'll come to you, Andrew. Andrew did say that there are other topic groups. We're always open to other ideas for new groups if people have them. It's just a question of people coming along and sort of getting started with that. Andrew, did you want to say something on waste?
Yeah, just two or three things. One is that some of us in Transport Group are very keen to work with Waste Group and the council on possibility of e-cargo bike collection of food waste when the government's directive comes in, and that could be a small green enterprise that could start up. But coming back to, I just want to do a little reality check on the energy thing. I think that's really great, important and fantastic, that sharing experience and so on. At the same time, two things, reality checks. One particular of those people on the list is full of ideas, tips, experience, suggestions, and links. I happen to be, my wife and I are working on a home extension with an architect, and we've been told that some of these suggestions would not meet building regs, and therefore the value of your home is at stake when you do these things. And the second one is, and there's a risk here. That's important. I did a back of the envelope calculation that but individual people with money, with government grants, doing all these things, even the best of schemes with the best of consultants and advice, it would take 800 years to get all of Wiltshire's homes greened and zero carboned down that route. So I think as a climate alliance and umbrella group, we also have to focus on the major work that government and the council and the big energy utilities need to do to decarbonise Wiltshire's housing stock, UK's housing stock in bulk. 800 years, we haven't got that.
Yeah, very, very good point. Absolutely. Yeah, take that on board. Okay, and then finally for tonight, Keith is going to share a little bit about the business topic group that's just started up. Now, Keith, can we, or Christian, can you let Keith share screen then?
Yeah, in fact, I just turned it off by mistake. Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Are you
Keith,
there?
over to you.
Yeah. So you should be able to share the screen now, Keith.
Okay, let's see if this works. Share.
Yep, all good.
Hoping you can see some slides that look similar to everybody else's green slides. I'll go relatively quickly on this, but it's very much a plan which is still in its growth and development stage, and I would welcome suggestions or additions. It's a malleable piece of plasticine that can be shaped into a different plan if it needs to be. But I've tried to, because it's the business engagement section, tried to take a fairly businessman-like approach. For people who don't know who I am, so I'm still relatively new around here, I'm a chemical engineer by background. There's a quick synopsis of a sort of 30, 40-year career in mostly industry and most latterly in the waste plastics recycling sectors of industry. So I know quite a lot about the circular economy and making things out of waste and running businesses to make them efficient. And then I call myself a businessman, a plastic man, a family man, and an iron man. That sort of sums me up, really. Just briefly talk about what the current purpose and objectives are of the group. Start on something about metrics and data, gathering knowledge from the members, and then a bit more about the resources and teams and the way people can join this. We had a discussion a few weeks ago about what we should be doing, and I like, if I'm going to put some energy into something, to try and get a bit of clarity about where we're going. Conscious of the fact that I've now written a set of aims without any numbers in them at all, which would be my original criticism of Wiltshire's strategy, but that's because the one shortage there is here are numbers. But anyway, this pretty much, as it is at the moment, summarizes what I'm trying to clarify in my brain and agree with people in the group is what we're trying to do. It starts from the concept that the business of actually doing business is the most large contributor to climate impact. And on a global scale, that's really backed up by that amazing bit of statistics you saw about 3 or 4 years ago. The top 100 companies in the world are responsible for 71% of global emissions. Now, I've looked at it a couple of times, they're pretty big firms. And if that level of concentration existed within the Wiltshire business environment, then we might have a thing where you could bring about some really big changes by impacting on a relatively small number of large, powerful organizations, albeit that's very difficult to do. So, as a set of aims, I'm saying, let's increase sustainable best practice in each main sector of where business is done here. Business to me doesn't mean a quoted stock market company employing people and doing things to make money. It means an organization such as a public sector organization, a private organization, it could even be a large charitable organization. We want to reduce any bad emissions and climate environmental impact they're having. People will say by how much and by when. The answer is I don't know to either of those. And I think a way to do that as a group like we are would be to gather good data and report and highlight both good business practice within different business sections, and also maybe point the finger at some organisations who perhaps aren't doing so well. It seems to me the only way to be successful in this is to try and establish a basis of collaboration with other bodies that exist at the moment. Clearly, if we are seen as an attractive organisation to work with by Wiltshire Council, and they have a climate action team, rather than produce lots of words about climate team, that might be a very good organisation to collaborate with. Loosely in my mind, I could envisage going to a large, impactful local organisation and saying, would you like to talk with us? We are the most important collaborative body working with Wiltshire Council to bring about change. We want to work with you, Mr. ABC car manufacturer, whatever you're called. The rest of it, disseminate ideas and tools and guidelines which might be useful to organisations, and just overall, just keep pushing and promoting for a more rapid transition to the act of doing business in and around Wiltshire being done in a more sustainable way. As this objective develops, I'd hope it gathers some numbers and some smart objectives. I then started looking at some data. This little pie chart's extracted straight from the Wiltshire strategy. It's about the only numeric piece in the document that I saw in the summary. And so then I tried to find, from this, I got this useful bit. The total emissions up there is 2,587 kilotons of CO2. That was from a report commissioned by BIS in 2019. How that was done, or the methodology who did it, or the scientists who came up with those numbers, I don't know. But it's the only numbers I've got at the moment that are anything like reliable. And obviously you can see that road transport's the biggest bit in Wiltshire, and all the different commercial organisations are also a very big number, 838 kiloton. And then I asked myself the question that maybe an awful lot of the road transport, it won't just be private cars driving to go to the shops or play golf or visit your mum. I'm assured that an awful lot of the road transport is actually part of the act of doing business, and I'm probably not included in industrial commerce and agriculture. But anyway, starting to get some data. I then drilled down to a bit more on the actual numbers behind this. I got the full spreadsheet of all the estimated climate emissions that BIS have produced each year for every county, and tried to split it into the different sections they have to give it a bit more granularity. And along the bottom here, you've got the names of all the different things: road transport for A roads, road transport minor roads, domestic electricity, industrial electricity. And to give it some clarity, I went through, and the blue colours are things which I think are just associated with road transport. The green bars are ones which are definitely to do with domestic activity, fueling homes. And all the yellow ones are ones that have something to do with industry or agriculture within them. So it gives you an indication that, particularly if my assumption that actually a large percentage of each of the blue bars is probably road transport, moving goods around, people driving to their place of work, etc., the overall impact of business within Wiltshire could be the biggest thing. And you can look at the different sectors where you might be able to do some work on that. So from that bit of analysis, which kind of interesting, maybe supports the fact that business use is the biggest producer of climate impact in the county. Then I said, well, what am I going to do if I'm going to lead this team? I'd like to get some better data about what the largest industrial, commercial, or public sector organisations are in the county. Not spend ages on it, do a quick 80-20, but try and get by Q3 of this year, say, a list of who the top 20 organisations are in terms of some agreed climate metric. And if you could get something together that had some science and numbers behind it, it might be a really interesting document to produce, a report about the top 20 big hitters on climate impact within the county. And then maybe, this is me being Mr. Optimistic, but then that's why I'm here. If we could engage with 50% of those big hitter companies in a positive way by the end of 2022, one would hope that that would start to deliver and promote and catalyze the rate at which they're changing the way they do business. I've put in here again that part of the work over the next few months is to form these strong collaborative working relationships. Initially, mostly with Wiltshire Council's climate team, and start working with them. We've got a discussion tomorrow morning with the Salisbury Business Engagement Group, who've got some work going on. So that's a start down that line. And then there must, it seems to me, be other large organisations who are trying to get businesses in the UK to change, whether it's what used to be called the DTI or BEES or the Confederation of Trade and Industry or the Southwest Business Engagement Group. One would hope that all these organisations are trying to do something to help businesses change the way they do work. And if we can link in with them, that's good. I'm conscious that then most of these things are about trying to engage with big business. There's a huge tail end of small organisations. You know, someone who fits windows, someone who has a dog grooming business, someone who operates taxis around devices. All those small businesses which are there probably account for a significant amount of climate impact. My gut feel is that best way to engage with those might be through the local council and some local council working teams. But I've put it in there as an objective without yet having full clarity about how that might be done. While everybody's here, so one of my starting points is the gathered hive of knowledge in these 500 members of the Wiltshire Climate Alliance must have in it an awful lot of years of accumulated knowledge about what goes on in the county. And I'm sure if each person sat down for 5 minutes and thought about who are the big impact organisations in my local environment. You know, is it a big cement company? Is there a transport company down the road? Who are the big dairy producers in the county? We ought to be able to pull together a very good list of who we think the big firms are. And we could fit that alongside this existing list we have from the council of all the big business rates payers, which is really measured on how big their land is and their buildings are, not necessarily what they do. And use that as a way to come up with this top 20, 40, 30 companies that we can start to deal with. We've created a small data submission form, which is at this link down in the business engagement page on the website. And so I'm asking everybody in the organization to come up with about 3 companies local to them, fill in the form. Why do you think they're big? You know, is it the number of people? Is it the number of lorries? Is it the number of chimney stacks they've got sticking out the top of their factory? And then send it back to us and we can start to amalgamate that together. Little bit on resources and teamwork. There's a pretty small team of people who I've currently found who seem to have been involved in this, but it's a really good time if you'd like to get on board with some business engagement work to join the group while I'm trying to infuse it with a bit of my own time and energy and enthusiasm and share some of this workload, because I'm a bit worried I might be biting off a bit more than I can chew here in terms of the amount of data that you're going to get. But you know, it's a big job. I'm keen to get stuck into it. If you want to get involved, please make contact and then we'll set up some regular group meetings and go from there. Right, that's it. That's all I want to say for now. Any questions, get back to me at my new Wiltshire Climate Alliance email address. Unless you've got any burning questions now, I shall stop sharing.
That's brilliant, Keith. Yeah, as said at the beginning, it's an area that we really wanted to get going. So it's fantastic to have you on board, and those, you know, I think you've got a great plan there. So that's it, I think, for topic groups. We're running pretty short on time, and we were hoping to have just a quick update on just some quick comments from some member groups. How many have we got? We've got at least 9 there.
So we've given them about 2 minutes each, I think.
2 minutes. That would be 18 minutes. So should we? Yeah. Okay. If everyone's happy to stay on, should we just do no more than 2 minutes each group? Yeah. So just leave that screen up. Mike and Salisbury XR. Still there?
Yep. Hello. Yep. Hopefully this is. I'll try and cut down on what I was going to say then. Yep. Salisbury XR, like probably everybody else, been on Zoom like we are tonight, and so most of our stuff the last year has been virtual campaigning, emailing, etc. However, we do have a whole series of models and display boards and not we've carted out to anything, anywhere where we could get them seen to try and engage the public, either in the town or things like the Salisbury Transition Cities People in the Park event and so on. And we've also been out to eco-church events and even done talks to local WI groups. We marked the G7 anniversary Cornwall event talks on 12th of June with a banner drop on the A303. And we also took part in various actions around the country during the summer. And in particular, we did one locally, which probably possibly ties in with the business aspect. One of our biggest local producers of emissions, though possibly in a carbon neutral way, or aiming to be, is Rockhopper group of companies which carry out exploration work in the South Atlantic and will eventually, no doubt, do exploitation down there. They're also, interestingly, involved in the investor-state dispute settlement mechanism, or using it to sue the Italian government, which makes the whole thing slightly academic if the governments are no longer able to keep their oil in the ground. That's our local company, which we probably ought to engage with rather than doing what we did, which is pouring oil over ourselves outside them. We also trying to again engage in the with the public, been carrying out every 2 weeks for the last 6 months since the summer, Pause for the Planet, where unusually for XR, we just sit and meditate and invite people to come along and join us and hand out leaflets to anybody who does turn up. Going back to the virtual side, one of our members has coordinated emailing every MP in the country successively with information emails so they can't not know what's happening, giving them details of climate change, biodiversity loss, etc. And we built a website, not quite grand scale as WCA, where a lot of that information is available. And finally, I just finished up by saying, as we all saw the IPCC's report on Monday that was published, it looks though there's plenty of scope for protests to carry on, assuming it isn't actually banned under the police crime and sentencing bill, which might make us all slightly restricted in our activities. That's us for Salisbury Extinction Rebellion.
Thank you, Mike.
Brilliant. Yeah, Kate, Royal Wootton Bassett. Do we have Kate?
Yes, sorry. Hello everyone. So I'm the organiser for the Royal Wootton Bassett Environmental Group, and we've got 3 big aims for our group. So we want to reduce carbon emissions, and we have an active travel group, which is their main focus. Unfortunately, progress over the last year has been a little bit slow. I think about 12 years ago, Wiltshire Council agreed to build a cycle path to Swindon, which is yet to appear. And they've done a lot of research on getting a local network of cycle paths around the town. But again, there's been a lack of support with local council and really not getting anywhere with Wiltshire Council. They've been consulting with other local groups, so Chippenham Group recently, to find out how they did it as a kind of like a model. And I think the answer really is to break it down just smaller projects and get funding. Another one of our aims is to protect our green spaces and increase biodiversity. So we've got 2 project groups for that, one of which is the Wildflower Group. And some of you may know me before because I've been talking about wildflowers for quite a long time. Our town council, we made slow progress with them. They were quite resistant. So what we ended up doing was actually putting on an exhibition about wildflowers in our library in order to educate residents and the council. And then we followed it up with putting together a survey with our town council, which was basically, we did a public consultation for them. The results of this showed overwhelming support for biodiversity and tree planting in wildflower areas. And we what was one of our key messages, which helped, I think, get support for us, was we emphasised that we would want wildflower areas around the edges. So we didn't want to take over parks, because there'd been some bad reactions from some residents when a park, just basically the whole park wasn't mown and it got overgrown. So we found really some success with that. And the town council have now agreed to do a wildflower border in one of their parks. And we're hoping that this will be a success and they'll extend it. And they've actually now invited us to join their tree planting working group. And after pushing for a long time, we're starting to feel some traction. I've also been informally told by Wiltshire Council that, and again, this has been immensely frustrating because I've been trying to get through to Street Scene and Wiltshire Council for ages on this score with the verges that they're responsible for. But I was informally told by a councillor this week that they are shortly to publicise a new change in strategy of introducing wildflower verges anywhere where visibility isn't an issue. So I haven't heard anything more about this, but if anyone else has, I'm really excited to hear it, but obviously I'm waiting for the caveats on that one. We've also started a new group for wild life surveys, on the principle that in order to help our wildlife, we need to know what we have. So they've started up and they're going to be surveying our main green spaces in Woodham Bassett, and we want to do some talks and some events as part of that. We had a sustainable project group before, but it kind of died a death because the person leading it moved, as tends to happen. Well, you know, people come and go. We started up another one, which is a task force and is very project orientated. So we are looking at the water refill scheme, at launching that in Bassett. And that seems to be, because it's basically businesses sign up and they agree to refill people's water bottles in order to reduce plastic, etc. It's not going to change the world, but this seems to be really well received. I don't know about other groups, but I found anything involving reducing plastic seems to be quite popular. And we want to do an eco-fest come summer with lots of stalls and talks. There is one thing that I wanted to bring up actually. So it's always great to hear about what other groups are going, but every time I do, I think, oh, we're all effectively trying to do the same thing. And I know those Wiltshire Climate Action Steering Group members that I've talked to before, I've mentioned the idea of better communication between the groups. So I guess my question here is, of reps here from the different groups, would people be interested in starting up some sort of quick and easy chat group or messenger group so we could exchange ideas or best practice and events and ideas for talkers and experiences and things like that? If people are interested, do you want to raise your hand just as a bit of an indication? Okay, so there's a few hands going up. Excellent. So Wiltshire Climate Alliance, is this something, steering group, is this something that you could take on, say collecting by people's email addresses? Or if not, I'd be happy to send an email around to get things started.
Yeah, no, thank you for raising that, Kate. It's definitely something we would like to support and encourage and facilitate. And we've been looking at online collaboration tools for a few months yet recently. And there's one called Slack, which I don't know if some of you have heard of, may use. It's very briefly, it's an online collaboration tool that allows you to have a number of sort of simultaneous groups. And so we could potentially use that for exactly the purpose you've talked about. Because I think the more that we can facilitate sharing between member groups, the better. So I think that's something to pick up again in the steering group tomorrow and see how we could do that. It's one of those things we haven't quite got round to properly using yet, but I think we'll definitely put that on the agenda and see how we can encourage that. Definitely. Yeah.
That's great. I have used Slack before for very similar other groups, and
Okay.
it's good because it's private. So unlike, for example, a public Facebook page, you can kind of keep discussions private. The only thing is you do have to remember to check it, unlike something like perhaps a messenger group where people would look at it casually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd be happy to support this because I think it would be so helpful to share best practice, and it would save us all time, because I know this is an issue for everyone here, right? We want to do so much, but we only have limited time.
Yeah. Well, let's pick that up at the next members meeting, as Kristen suggested. I think it's a great idea. Thanks. Yeah.
Thanks, Adam.
I appreciate we're running very low on time.
Very low on time.
If people have to go, quite understand, but I mean, it's all been worthwhile. I'll give a very 1 minute update on Corsham. quite similar, actually. We're doing a lot of work around it. We're starting up a community garden to add to the 2 community orchards that we've done over the years. We've got an eco fair happening on the 2nd of April. We're doing a lot of work around waste and recycling. We've got this recycling hub that's been extremely successful at our local community centre. And we're doing a lot of work with the local town council, who are really, really engaged on this stuff around sort of cycling and so on. And also we're working closely with our area board, and that's another area that's worked quite successfully. So they have one of the councillors who is responsible for coordinating between all the different parish councils and town councils, and we're giving a lot of input to that. Jez, do you want to go and do?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I mean, Climate Friendly Bradford and Avon have got several groups, I think 6 subgroups, including biodiversity. So everything that people have mentioned about biodiversity is something we're probably doing. Sustainable food and drink, looking at local sources of food. Zero waste, we're starting repair cafes, monthly repair cafes in Bradford, which should be useful. Active travel, we're lucky to have Andrew Nicholson in our town, and we've just had a future of traffic consultation and awaiting the results of that and see how that will be implemented. But the thing I did want to mention more than anything is the work that our energy group are doing. It was mentioned in dispatches before, so I'm going to read out what they sent me to read out. Unfortunately, I'm not able to read out everyone else's, but this one. The energy group has been working to thread together several things. An energy questionnaire, which will be distributed with assistance from the town council to gauge patterns of energy use across the town. Cheese energy surveys, that's the Cold Homes Energy Efficiency Survey experts, of each of the 5 generic house types in Bradford, using their innovative sensing and recording technique. A home energy efficiency event on the 17th of March, everyone welcome, organised by the Town Council's Energy and Green Spaces team to showcase best local practice so far. Introductory training workshops to outline simple, cheap ways to reduce energy consumption in the home. A more in-depth seminar detailing where heat pumps will and will not be effective. And as a rolling reference, a set of case studies in the energy group section of the Climate Friendly Bradford website.
Great, sounds like good stuff there. Really great group, the Bradford group, I must say.
It's long-standing, and I guess we started before everyone else. So
yeah. Graham, devices. Still with us?
It doesn't look like he's muted, but we can't hear him. You're not muted, but you're not coming through. No, okay.
Speaker, we'll come back to that.
Adam, we've got a second. Can I just remind people to send in the details of their events so that we can add them to the calendar? So when you go to the website, there's the events bit. It's very quick for us just to add it to a Google Calendar, and then it shows up for anybody who wants to know. So do send the details of those events, like the 17th of March one you were talking about just now. Jez, send those through and we can stick them to the calendar.
Send it where, Christian?
Okay.
Sorry.
Just email it to us, contact that, and I'll put it in the calendar.
Graham, have we got you?
Yeah. Right. Up to October 2020, Devizes Town Council wouldn't declare a climate emergency, but they've now got a statement of intent to create a sustainable community. And we've got a working group, which is got a couple of Wiltshire councillors, town councillors, and community groups on it. We've done a survey, which I spoke about before. Top things on the survey were waste, plastic free, traffic free, and active travel infrastructure and biodiversity. So that's sort of reflecting some of the other things that we've heard from other groups. Big ticket item is we are doing an LC whip. In fact, I'm on a meeting tomorrow with the contractor to start that off. That's a local cycling, walking and infrastructure plan. And we're going to have a public consultation, which won't be the virtual one that the contractor's offering us, but we're going to combine it with a sustainability day on the 11th of June. We're going to showcase a lot of our sustainability, but also turn that into a public consultation on the LC whip. And the next thing is we're looking at how we actually use all that networking that we've got to then bring in the major businesses and form partnerships with them. End of.
Brilliant, thank you. That's a great one to find out more about as you progress with that one, I think. Dorothy Wild Cullen, are you with us?
Yes, just first briefly on the climate side, the Parish Council did last year declare a climate and biodiversity emergency, and they did set up a subgroup, climate subgroup, but it has really very little has actually emerged from that yet. But now I think things are much more hopeful. It was just the people that were running it, you know, things happen, and really it sort of fell apart for various reasons. But we now have a new councillor on who's picking up the lead, and she's, for us to be a subgroup with a council on the biodiversity side, we have to have a councillor, and we did have two, and again they had to leave. So she's now going across, and we formally being a proper subgroup, which is climate and biodiversity. So we have the links back into the parish council again, and this particular woman is very capable and very committed. So I'm feeling that now finally we will start to see that we can start catching up with some of the other areas. On the Wild Cullen side of things, we're focusing quite a lot at the moment in winning hearts and minds and getting a newsletter out and trying to build up our email group. We've got a Facebook group with a membership of nearly 150, so that's going well. We're going to make a big fuss for our Swifts this year as a way of engaging people, because we're very fortunate in having Cullen Swifts, but the numbers are going down. So we're going to be doing a big push both with poetry and art, and trying to engage some of the youngsters, say like the Scouts, with doing citizen science, with logging sightings and logging actually where you can see the nests, and getting the school involved. And we're hoping to tie in the whole, not just the nests that are getting lost, but also the insect side. So we're having a village hall talk on Swifts, and another one that's going to be linking in more with the gardens. So we're making contacts with the Gardening Society. So we've got a talk from someone who did work with Plant Life on wildflower lawns, and just trying to just go very, very gently on the getting the wildflowers going. And I really like that comment Cara said about the wildflowers at the edges, because we're having to sort of tread fairly carefully. On the verges, we have some protected verges that were protected, and then the funding was removed and they've just sort of been left. So we have been trying to do what we can quickly before the season ended in March to get cutting back dogwood and brambles and things, and just trying to protect a little bit of that. We're linking in, our parish has Bybrook and its tributaries on 3 sides of parish. So we are just making links with the Bybrook, Friends Bybrook and Bybrook Conservation, and all the work from the Wiltshire Wildlife Trust water team. And we're hoping that's going to be really quite fruitful and get some of the fishermen engaged and see if we can look at the water guardianship. And I have heard rumours that there are some conversations going on with some of the farmers locally in terms of a cluster, because with the farm clusters, there's a big gap in the North Wilts area. So we're really hoping that something can come of that from the work that the water team is doing for the Bybrook catchment area. So yes, I probably won't say any more. That's sort of where we are at the moment.
Thank you. Thank
you.
I
would just say about verges, actually, I'm really interested to hear what this sort of hint that there might be a change and something more positive, but I hope it's not just a slight bigging up of the email that came round from Street Scene, where we're being asked to identify areas that can be managed for wildflowers.
It is that.
Their criteria are just so, they're so limited that it's very, very hard to find somewhere that suits them. It has to be somewhere flat, the
that is what people are referring to. So it's not a huge initiative, but it's something that perhaps could be built on and encouraged and supported. Anyway.
Yeah, hopefully. It's very slow but sure with slow but unsure with the verges. I don't think we've really made that much progress with the council yet with that.
No, thank you, Dorothy. That's great. Julian, very quickly on Swindon. It's probably a lot to say, but
yeah, thanks, Adam. I'll just mention 6 things quickly. One of them is discussion with MPs, which we haven't really mentioned tonight or got much in our future plans, but there's an organisation called Hope for the Future that can actually help you analyse your MP and work out the key things you ought to be saying to them based on their interest in what they do and everything. So both our MPs we'd be engaging, and we did it pre-COP26, and we need to follow them up again now, actually, because it's really key to follow up the government's commitments in COP26. Second thing I mentioned is town partnerships. Now, we had a Swindon Science Festival last week, and it reminded me that one of the people on the panel with me was a professor from Reading, who is chair of their town partnership, and which I was part of as well when I was there, and also someone from Bristol, Nina Scubala, who's from Business West and who's was instrumental in setting up Bristol Green Capital. Now we've got potentially some really key people here and nationwide and things who would help to make that. So we're looking to try and pull that together. It's early stage planning at the moment, but if anyone's here, I'll put my contact details in the chat, and please do come back to me if you've got any thoughts about that. The third thing I mentioned is we've now got a sort of community centre, which was intended to be what they call a climate emergency centre as part of the network of UK climate emergency centres. We got it running as a community centre, and we sort of, but over the next year, we hope to green it a bit more and get more sort of sustainable culture and information in there. So that's one of the things we're doing. Fourth thing I mentioned is we tried to do a little bit on veganuary based around the community centre, which we did, but it was only quite small. But we are now looking to make sure we host a vegan fair or 2 or 3 in the community centre and in Swindon. We've had them on and off over previous years. There's an organisation in Gloucester that has done them around North Wiltshire. There's also an organisation in Wiltshire who's done them in South Wiltshire. If anyone knows key contacts or is interested in that, please let me know, because I haven't managed to really contact either of them properly. People have changed and so forth, so I've lost our contacts and they're being a bit unresponsive. So that's a fourth thing. A fifth thing I mentioned is we got a church hall retrofit project on the 12th of March, which has an open day in Wroughton, South Swindon. So people around that very welcome. The church halls are really quite important for various reasons, partly because of the church community, and it's a really good way of sort of communicating and discussing the environmental messages, and also because they often have a little halls with south-facing roofs and a little bit of money. So they did a thermal survey, they've insulated the roof, they put solar panels on it, and they've also got a community garden. So really interesting on 12th of March, and I hope that, you know, I think there may be other things in Wiltshire, and I'd love to sort of tie it with other things in Wiltshire that's happening. And the sixth thing I was going to mention was simply that we are in the process of rehosting our website. It's a WordPress website. We want to move it to another WordPress host. If anyone has got any clues on that, then please let me know about that as well. Thanks, that's me done.
Okay, thanks, Julian. Salisbury.
Oh, lovely. Thank you. So 3 things. A date for your diary is September the 17th, when we're holding our People in the Park festival type thing. Last year we had about 1,500 people and about 30 come along during the day. And we had about 30 different organisations represented at that fair, a couple of stages. It's entertaining, so bring friends and family, etc. That's the 17th of September. The other one that we've been working with is we've been working with Leaf. They are hosting a fantastic day out for the kids and learn about environment and retrofitting and all sorts of stuff. That's going to be held at Langford Lakes on the 9th of April. Look for details on the events page of WCA website. And just the last thing is that we're doing a fair bit with the council We've had several meetings with them just recently, trying to get them to show leadership. So them to be hosting a film night on the environment, get them to host various different things, and not to be seen as necessarily being led by this odd organisation called Salisbury Transition City. To show leadership, basically. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Nada Kimchenji, Christian, have you got it?
Maggie's here now.
Oh, Maggie's here. Do you want to? Maggie?
She did send a report in, but it's a bit long. Maggie, you're muted. Maggie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi there, everyone. Can you see me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a quick one then. I'm late to the meeting because I had another meeting on. Just Nada Community Energy. It's been going for quite a number of years now. First of all our 16 of our photovoltaic installations still going well, picking up production as the sun rises now as well. Managed to survive the storms okay. And it's NC is a community benefit society with shareholders from 2 big share offers in 2015, 2018. We are looking at newer projects coming up to do with local energy and solar energy on a bigger space, but that's all in plan at the moment. We also, an offshoot of our organisation is our car club, which some of you have heard about. That's still going strong, although we had our funding, which was originally set up, finished at the end of December. So we're kind of working on a shoestring now with volunteers, but basically it's still going strong. Still a few members joining. We're up to 60 now, and it's still, still going, and we're hanging on in there. Hopefully we've got enough money to keep going for another few months, which is great. Another thing we were looking at was renewable heating for schools locally. We had some funding for feasibility, but unfortunately, the proposals that we made, Wiltshire Council didn't apply for the Salix funding that we asked them to do, so we didn't have the money available, but one of the schools in Dorset near to us did, so there's a big ground source heat pump going in there because Dorset had the funding for it. Other than that, we're still going strong, and I think there's some information about us on WCA website. Get in touch if you want to. We go to, obviously, regularly WCA. We were at the Trowbridge meeting, the rally a couple of weeks ago, and always interested in being involved. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great whistle-stop tour of what local groups are doing. I think it's definitely worth, at our next members meeting, spending more time on local groups, and particularly on that point that Kate raised about collaboration and how to get that going more effectively. Brilliant. That's the end of the meeting. We've overrun a bit. Thank you to everybody. I think we covered an awful lot tonight. Thanks for all your votes. We're steering groups meeting shortly, and we'll be picking up on all of those points, and see you all next month.